Well, if you're wondering why farmers are so concerned about their farm finances right now, they really just can't catch a break. It's not just because corn prices are below break even for most. It's the fact input prices are so high.
The U.S. has lost the corn crown. We've been the world's top exporter of corn for just about every single year in history.
For as long as most of us can remember, the United States has been the king of corn, the top exporter, the global leader, year in and year out. But then, almost overnight, it all came crashing down. It sent a shockwave through the American heartland, and in this explainer, we're going to dive into exactly how it happened.
So you gotta ask, right? How does something so foundational, so vital to the global food supply and the U.S. economy just collapse? This wasn't a slow, gentle decline. No, this was a rapid, brutal unraveling. Let's break down how the crown was lost.
This quote, it just says it all, doesn't it? It captures the sheer speed of this crisis. We're not talking about abstract numbers on a spreadsheet. We're talking about 2 million tons of American corn getting rejected and literally sent back to New Orleans. Imagine that. Those million-dollar deals, poof, just worthless paper. So that brings us to what it actually looks like on the ground in the American Corn Belt. And honestly, it's a grim picture. You've got these massive, expensive combine harvesters just sitting silent in the fields across Iowa, Indiana, you name it. And why? Because it now costs more to harvest the corn than what the corn itself is actually worth. And this number right here, this is the dagger. The price for corn in the Midwest just plummeted to $3.45 a bushel. That's the lowest it's been since 2016. For pretty much any farmer out there, that's way, way below the break-even point. It means you're literally losing money just to sell your crop.
So how in the world did we get here? Well, it wasn't just one thing. It was more like a perfect storm, a cascade of really bad events that hit all at once. Let's trace this chain reaction of costs and logistical nightmares that brought U.S. corn to its knees.
Okay, so first, you get hit with new tariffs. We're talking up to $1.5 million on some of these cargo ships. Then on top of that, inspection fees suddenly jump 40% out of nowhere. And the result of all that? Total gridlock. Barge traffic on the Mississippi just plummets. You have ships just sitting there, and corn is literally rotting before it can even get out of the country.
Now, at the exact same time all this is happening, the global market is changing under our feet. Big buyers, we're talking Mexico, mills in Asia and Europe, they all start demanding non-GMO corn. And here's the kicker. 92% of American corn is GMO. You couldn't invent a bigger mismatch between what we were selling and what the world suddenly wanted to buy.
And while the U.S. was stumbling, who was right there waiting to pick up the ball? Our neighbors to the north. But let's be clear. Canada didn't just get lucky. No, they strategically and brilliantly positioned themselves to fill the exact hole the U.S. had just created. It was like a silent takeover of the world's dinner plates.
So what was Canada's playbook? It was smart. Really smart. They built their whole strategy around a few key things. First, blockchain. Their Prairie Trace system lets you track every single kernel from the farm to the port. Then, they leaned hard into the 3 no's. No GMO, no glyphosate, no high carbon. They backed it all up with smart trade deals and a government safety net. It was a methodical, full-court press, and boy did it work.
And the payoff for Canada? It was huge, and it was immediate. For that green label, for that traceability, their corn started selling for a 20% premium. Importers were more than willing to pay extra for a product they knew they could trust.
This table right here, it just lays it all out. It's a tale of 2 completely different realities. You've got the U.S. price stuck at $3.45. Canada, they're getting $4.20. The U.S. is pushing GMO. Canada's offering non-GMO and low carbon. And get this, Canadian shipments were clearing customs in Europe 20 days faster. The entire map was being redrawn right before our eyes.
Of course, a huge shift like this doesn't just stop at the ports. It triggers a painful domino effect that ripples right into the heart of America, hitting farms, local businesses, and entire rural towns. Let's look at the real-world consequences.
And the numbers, they're just brutal. In just the first 3 months of 2025, Indiana's entire state economy shrank by over 6%. But what does that really mean for people? It means a 50% surge in families applying for food aid because farm incomes just vanished.
The sources describe something one paper called a zombie economy. And that image is so perfect. It's farmers having to drive for Uber at night just to make ends meet. It's local diners shutting down the grill at 6 p.m. because there's just no one coming in. The lights are on, but economically, nobody's home.
And here's the really scary part. This isn't contained to corn. Corn is just the first domino to fall. You have 25 ethanol plants shutting down. That's a massive buyer of corn, just gone. And that ripples out. It threatens soybeans, it threatens the beef and milk industries that rely on cheap corn for feed. The entire U.S. agricultural chain is suddenly on very shaky ground.
All of this, as you can imagine, puts the spotlight squarely on Washington. The government is now facing a massive choice. According to the source material, there are really only two ways forward from this spiraling crisis.
Okay, so path number one is to re-engage with the world and adapt. That means cutting the tariffs, getting on board with these new global standards for things like carbon and blockchain, and trying to rebuild that lost trust. Path number two is basically to double down. Keep the tariff walls high, stick with the old complicated system, and just try to patch the holes with government subsidies.
And that leaves us with this final, urgent question. The choice Washington makes isn't just going to affect the price of corn, it's going to determine the economic survival of countless American towns and communities. It's a decision that will define whether the U.S. can find a new way to compete on the world stage, or if its agricultural heartland is simply going to be left behind.